Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into the life and times of Genghis Khan.
Okay.
And, he's often portrayed as just like this ruthless conqueror.
Right.
But your notes suggested you're really interested in the man behind the legend.
Yeah.
And honestly, so are we.
It's a question that's fascinated historians, for centuries.
Yeah.
And to really, grasp Genghis Khan, you got to understand the world that forged him.
The Mongolian steppes.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a harsh environment.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
Absolutely brutal. And, Genghis Khan's early life,
Yeah.
it was like a crash course in survival.
Really?
Imagine this. Your father, the leader of your tribe, is murdered by your rivals.
Oh, wow.
And then you and your family are abandoned, left to fend for yourselves in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Oh my gosh. How old was he when this happened?
He was a young boy Temujin, as he was known then.
Temujin. Okay.
Yeah. And this experience, it really left an indelible mark on him.
Yeah, I bet. That's a lot of trauma for anyone to go through.
It made him realize just how vulnerable he was.
Yeah.
How fragile power could be.
Right.
And just the sheer ruthlessness of ambition.
Wow.
But it also forced him to be resourceful.
I was going to say he had to learn to survive.
Exactly. He even resorted to eating anything he could find.
Really?
Even rats.
Oh, way.
Oh, yeah.
That's hardcore.
It was survive or die.
I mean, I guess it makes sense when you think about it. His later ruthlessness, it's still disturbing, but it makes sense.
He was a product of his environment.
Totally.
But he was also incredibly smart.
Yeah. Like when his wife Berta was kidnapped.
Oh, yeah, that was a major turning point, right?
Huge. And this wasn't just some random act, you see. This was a calculated move by the Merkit tribe.
Really?
To undermine his growing influence.
Interesting. So they saw him as a threat already.
Oh, absolutely. He was already on the rise and they knew it.
So what did he do? He didn't just go off half-cocked, did he?
No. He was much more strategic than that.
Okay.
He saw this as an opportunity.
An opportunity. How so?
He knew he couldn't take on the Merkits alone.
His clan wasn't strong enough at that point.
Exactly. So he reached out to some powerful allies.
Like who?
Well, there was Togrul Khan of the Karait tribe.
Okay.
And of course his blood brother, Jamuka.
Right. These alliances, they weren't just temporary, right?
No. They formed the foundation of his power base for years to come.
And it's interesting how he solidified these bonds.
How so?
Well, we talked about the marriage to Bert.
Right.
That wasn't just love, that was strategic too.
Well, absolutely. Every alliance, every relationship had a purpose.
It's like he was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers.
He was always thinking several steps ahead.
And that's what allowed him to unite the Mongol tribes.
Which is incredible when you think about it.
I was just going to say that nobody had been able to do that for generations.
They're constantly at each other's throats.
Right.
But Genghis Khan, he found a way.
And it wasn't just through brute force.
No, he was a master of diplomacy, too.
Yeah, he used a combination of strategies, didn't he?
He did take his defeat of the Tatars, for example.
Okay.
That wasn't just about revenge for his father. It was a calculated move to neutralize a powerful enemy.
And what did he do? Brought their warriors into his own ranks.
Exactly. He knew that a strong leader surrounds himself with skilled individuals, even former enemies.
Wow. So he really understood that true power wasn't just about conquering.
Yeah.
It was about bringing people together.
Uniting them under a common goal.
Yeah. And that's where his relationship with Jamuka gets really interesting.
Right. Their brotherhood, their rivalry.
It's almost tragic when you think about it.
Two powerful visions for the future of the Mongol people destined to clash.
It really is. Like a Shakespearean tragedy almost.
It is, isn't it?
Two blood brothers driven apart by ambition.
Yeah.
But didn't Genghis Khan try to reconcile with Jamuka?
He did. He offered him a way out.
Really?
Even after everything, even after years of rivalry. He still saw Jamuka as his blood brother.
He understood the importance of unity.
Exactly.
Especially among his own people.
So what happened? Why did it end so tragically?
Jamuka. He refused. He chose death on his own terms.
Wow, pride, huh?
You could say that. But it paved the way for Genghis Khan's rise to absolute power.
And in 1206,
That's right.
Temujin the boy, who once had to scavenge for scraps,
Yeah.
he's proclaimed Genghis Khan,
The universal ruler.
and thus the Mongol Empire was born. And what an empire it became.
Like nothing the world had ever seen.
Seriously, though, the scale of their conquests, it's mind-boggling. How did they do it?
Well, at the heart of it was their military prowess.
Right, the Mongols were like the ultimate fighting force.
Absolutely. They were masters of horsemanship and mounted archery.
Yeah, the horses and the bows, but there had to be more to it than that, right? Oh, absolutely. Their tactics, their discipline, their sheer endurance.
Give me some specifics. What were the key elements that made them so unstoppable?
Well, imagine this. Thousands upon thousands of horsemen.
Okay.
Sweeping across the steppes. Moving like a force of nature.
I can only imagine. It'd be terrifying.
That speed, that mobility, it allowed them to cover vast distances and incredibly fast.
So they could just appear out of nowhere?
Exactly. Strike before their enemies even knew what hit them.
And then vanish back into the steppes.
Leaving a trail of destruction in their wake.
And we have to talk about the Mongol bow.
Oh, yes. It was a masterpiece of engineering.
It wasn't just any old bow, was it?
No. This was a composite bow, crafted from layers of hornwood and sinew.
Wow. And that made it stronger.
Incredibly strong, and it gave them incredible range and accuracy.
I bet they could do some serious damage with those things.
Oh, absolutely. They could pierce armor from hundreds of yards away.
Wow. And they were firing from horseback.
Even at a full gallop.
That's insane. Okay, so we've got speed, mobility, incredible firepower. But they didn't rely on brute strength alone, did they?
No, Genghis Khan was also a master of adaptation.
Oh, really?
He knew that to conquer the world, he had to master every form of warfare.
So he was willing to learn new tricks.
Absolutely. When he encountered the fortified cities of China, he realized he needed new tactics.
So he became a siege warfare expert.
Exactly. He brought in engineers. He incorporated gunpowder weapons. He was always one step ahead.
And wasn't he also a master of psychological warfare?
Oh, absolutely. He knew how to break his enemies before a single arrow was fired.
I read about that. He had this reputation for being utterly ruthless.
Surrender or face annihilation. That was his motto.
And it worked.
It was terrifyingly effective. By the time of his death in 1227, the Mongol Empire was the largest contiguous land empire in history.
From the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea.
And it was all built on the ambition of a man who refused to be defined by his past.
Genghis Khan, a conqueror, a visionary. He really did change the world.
He did. But his legacy is far more complex than that.
It's incredible to think he came from such humble beginnings and ended up ruling this vast empire.
It really is remarkable. And, he wasn't content with just conquering land.
Right. He had this bigger vision, didn't he?
He did. He believed in his divine right to rule.
Oh, yeah, the whole Tengri thing, right?
Exactly, Tengri, the eternal blue sky, the supreme deity of the Mongols.
Okay, for those of us who aren't Mongol scholars, what does that actually mean?
Well, for the Mongols, Tengri represented ultimate power and authority.
The sky itself.
Exactly. And Genghis Khan believed he was chosen by Tengri to unite the world.
To bring order to the chaos.
Precisely. And this belief, it fueled his ambition.
It gave him a sense of purpose.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it leads us to one of the most fascinating parts of his legacy.
You mean the Yasa?
The Yasa, his law code.
Yeah, I've always been curious about this one. Because we don't even have the full text anymore, do we?
No, sadly, it's been lost to history.
So how do we know what it said?
We have to rely on fragments, historical accounts, writings from people who lived under Mongol rule.
Okay, so what do we know? What kind of law code was it?
It was surprisingly progressive for its time.
Really? For a guy known for his brutality on the battlefield?
It's true. But Genghis Khan, he was a complex figure. He understood that a strong empire needed more than just military might.
So what were some of the key principles of the Yasa?
Well, one of the most striking was religious tolerance.
Religious tolerance?
Yeah.
Wow, I did not see that coming.
In an era when religious persecution was rampant, Genghis Khan mandated freedom of worship throughout his empire.
That's pretty amazing when you think about it.
He even incorporated aspects of different religions into his own personal beliefs.
Interesting. So he was open to different ideas.
He was pragmatic. He knew that to rule such a diverse empire, he couldn't impose a single religion or ideology.
It makes sense. And this pragmatism, it extended to his views on governance too, didn't it?
It did. He believed in meritocracy.
So it didn't matter who your father was or what clan you came from.
Exactly. What mattered was your loyalty and your competence.
He promoted people based on their skills and achievements.
That's right. A radical concept for his time.
It really was. So we have this fascinating paradox. A ruthless conqueror who also had this vision of a more just and equitable society.
That's the legacy of Genghis Khan. A man of contradictions.
How do we reconcile those two sides?
That's the question that continues to fascinate historians today.
There's no denying the brutality of the Mongol conquests.
Millions died, cities were destroyed.
But at the same time, the Mongol Empire ushered in an era of peace and stability.
The Pax Mongolica.
Right, trade flourished along the Silk Road.
Cultural exchange reached new heights.
And Genghis Khan's genetic legacy. It's mind-blowing.
They say he could be the direct ancestor of millions of people alive today.
It's incredible to think about. So where does that leave us with Genghis Khan?
I think it's up to each of us to decide how we want to remember him.
He's a product of his time, a man of both great vision and great brutality.
His story reminds us that history is never simple.
It's a tapestry of complexities. And Genghis Khan's life, it certainly reflects that.
It does. And as we continue to learn more about him, I'm sure we'll uncover even more surprises.
Well, I, for one, am fascinated to see what the future holds for our understanding of Genghis Khan.
Me too.
And to our listener, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the life and legacy of one of history's most enigmatic figures. Until next time, keep exploring.